Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to Reaction Time once again. We're back for the second week in a row for the first time in months. Look at us go. We're full of playoff energy. We've rounded into form at the right part of the season and are on a hot streak heading into our miracle run here as a podcast. Let me just stretch these analogies out as hard as I can. Anyway, Steven's here. Eric's here. Eric, do you feel energized?
I kind of do. TSM lost in round one, so that's all I really needed to go into the important first round playoffs. Much more happy with life.
Steven, are you excited to talk about a major regions playoffs for the first time on this podcast?
Ooh, don't bully me. LEC has like 2 teams or something like that that are good, decent, maybe.
It's greater than 0.
It's greater than. Oh. Don't give me that salt. Get out of here.
Oh yeah, I mean we'll see. It's all to play for, even though MSI will be a small sample size. We have some evidence based on some years past, but anyway, I digress. Just had to try and get some burns off in the opening because that's what we're here for, the spice. And the spice indeed must flow as we begin our look at the LEC playoff picture and make some predictions and possibly bring you some hot takes. We are going to start in the upper bracket with G2 and Schalke. I mentioned the miracle run. It didn't take a miracle run to get Schalke into the playoffs this time, but they've got the 4 seed. They're matching up against G2. And Eric, I'm going to start with you. Is G2 going to troll?
At least one game. So, I mean, it's G2. There's going to be at least one awful draft in this where they give Schalke everything they want, which is going to be Hecarim in the jungle and Broken Blade on some kind of nonsense top lane like Urgot, and they're just gonna like hard throw the top side of the map and give up a game. So I'd say at least one game they're gonna troll. If they lose that game or not is another question, but trolling at least once, definitely. That's all that this team can do.
Steven, is G2 going to troll this series?
I'll give them the one game. It's not likely. I don't think they can show their colors early. Like, they have to keep the cheddar cheese to themselves. But they cannot meme lose and go into the lower bracket and then just, like, lazy boy coast. Like, it's not allowed.
Can't they?
No.
They've done that before.
No, they can't do it again, though. They can't.
They have a track record of doing that exact thing you just said.
Wait, that's illegal. That's not allowed.
To be fair, like, the last time they dropped themselves down to the losers bracket was against, like, a, first split in games from home, not on stage, against Mad Lions, who were very hungry and played out of their minds for the entire series. Schalke is a much more known quantity than that Mad Lions was. I don't see them having some sudden explosion of talent going into this series. Like, Gilius is also someone who I know that Yankos and the rest of G2 just love to beat. So this does not strike me as a series where they'll end up dropping the entire thing.
So, quick stat to start off with on G2. Over the, I believe this is just over Spring Split, yeah, and the LEC. G2, if we look through our general economy stats for them, it's green. It's all green. It's all positive. G2's win rate, this split went ahead at 15 minutes, is 100%. 100%. They have not lost. They don't always get first blood. They have relatively low first blood percentage at 38.9% across 18 games. They get first tower a lot more than that at 61.1%. But it's a team that knows how to play macro. This is a team that knows how to team fight. They are pretty easily the most experienced team in the world in high level well, not in the world, in Europe, in these high level, very important games with experience at Worlds, at MSI, you name it, they've been there. And yet, sometimes weird stuff happens. Eric, what do you see for Schalke as, not necessarily just giving G2 all the credit for trolling a draft, but where can Schalke take advantage of things here?
I think it's on top side of the map if they want to. Broken Blade has looked good, and they've started to identify that like feeding Broken Blade and then letting them TP bot is an excellent win strategy. It's a very simple win strategy, but if they can execute, it works. And Wonder has not been in top form this split. He's been pretty good, but like he hasn't had his like overwhelming off meta picks that he's used to dominate playoffs previously. And it might be they just haven't needed to show it because now he has like an actual 80 carry, so they haven't needed to go for that. But like he hasn't been dumpstering lane or pulling out these off meta picks to the same extent. So I would say like out of top lane, they're gonna need to ban Sion a lot. I would ban Sion every game this series if I was Schalke.
Schalke has an opportunity to leverage, like, there is a very regimented play style. And if G2 has to be predictable to win, which is where they're at their weakest, they can play things very well. But they like to meme, and they like to play around and have fun with the game. If Schalke can keep it regimented and keep it, like, baseline League of Legends, they could probably pick up 2 and maybe 3 wins. So looking at those champion pools and what Eric brought up with the top lane, keeping it like streamlined, basic League of Legends, no, you're not getting away with any kind of the crass stuff that you try, they might be able to pull out a win. That's how they could.
And that's the blueprint, right? Because we did see this, the 2 games they played this split 1-1. Schalke won the first game of this series in a game in which they never trailed in gold. Had a what was the gold lead at 15? Almost 4,000 gold lead at 15 minutes. Both heralds, first tower, first kill, like complete control of the early game. Great game from Gilius on the Udyr right when that was starting to be a thing in January. Now G2 took care of business in the second game with a great game from Yankos on Nidalee, something which we don't often expect to see, but happened in that game, and some Senna from Reckless. But Schalke has shown, it took them a while to close this game out, 2 Barons, and let G2 get 3 Dragons to get back into the game. But they've shown that they can control and win a game against G2, which is a notable feat. Eric, do you think there's anything we can take from these 2 matchups that we saw between these teams in the regular season?
The big thing to me is like if it goes into late game or mid game in a neutral state, Schalke's shot calling is not good enough to win from neutral in mid and late game objective fights. Limit's good on engaged supports, but his game sense isn't quite as strong as Treats or Mickey or Hilly. And because of that, you'll see that like they have what looks like good setups, and then they end up falling apart inside of the team fight. And that's kind of the big point of concern for me on them. Abba also gets caught out in side lanes pretty frequently. So like kind of to your point, like they win when they have that gold lead. So build that gold lead, play the map towards easy advantages by getting Rift Herald as a higher priority than Dragons, and then get a huge gold lead and use that to take over and push in and map vision and then win standard. And that's kind of the approach they really need to go for here. If they want to like take a solid win off of G2, rather than like the Mad Lions approach from last split, which was more of like a chaos style win over G2.
And I think there's a lot of opportunity for Schalke to let's showcase and expose G2. Like they have to have that like brazen meme play style, and they cannot submit to consistent early game by the book League of Legends, where they take early advantages and they push those gold leads and they push the map state, and their weak shot calling or team fight or late game like anarchy doesn't have to come into play. So if we're looking for a way for Schalke to win, play standard, the most pristine early game League of Legends, and expose G2 for the clowns that they are.
Make G2 prove to you they can make miracles happen in late game from down massive amounts of gold. They haven't really had to do that this split so far. And so, like, make them prove it in a best of 5. You know, that's more than most of the other teams in this bracket could hope to expect from Schalke, is to see flaws.
Picks to watch in this series. Both ADCs have shown favorites over the split. Neon has 8 games on Kai'Sa out of the 18 games in the split. Reckless has 8 games on Jhin out of the 18 games in the split. Both by far the most single champions played on their teams respectively. After that, you see the Gragas from Wonder in the top lane and the Alistar from Limit in the bot lane as well. So there's the ADs both have clearly shown their styles. A thing I think is interesting is neither AD has shown Tristana, and only Abbedagge played 1 game of Trist, and which Schalke lost. So Trist, who is a champion that we've seen a priority get higher and higher and higher on, even in the NA series this past week, neither team has shown this, and I'm interested to see where it comes out.
If there were teams that would flex carries mid, it would be these two teams, with just their play styles as well as the roles of both their mid laner and their ADs. Reckless, like, Trist isn't actually a very good Reckless pick as far as play style goes, which might mean that with just how strong Trist is, that it's actually a great Reckless pick.
You can put him on whatever. He'll play something if you tell him to play it.
But you can definitely expect Reckless to not try and mistake it for Malphite and just jump over the wall into the enemy team. Like, that's not a thing that Reckless is going to do if he gets his hands on this champion. So I would expect it to go mid if it is picked up in this matchup, or maybe top lane, because Wonder typically flexes mages top, but I would not be surprised for that to show up in that lane in this series.
And Wonder's really only shown 2 mage-ish things out of the 18 games this split, with the 1 top Ivern game and the 1 Karma game. So there just hasn't been much of that this split. Obviously, historically, there's a different record for it. The interesting pick in the top lane is both Wonder and Broken Blade have played at 10-plus champions each over the split. They've both been very flexible. But out of all the games Broken Blade has played, he's played 2 games on Aatrox, which were the 2 games against G2. So he's played all these different things in the rest of the split, but he's only ever played Aatrox against G2. Probably just a quirk, but it's just something that Aatrox is still floating around the meta doing stuff. Might be a pick to watch on Broken Blade's side, because that seems to just, maybe it's a coincidence, but it's something that's there as a data point.
I think punishing Wonder for if he does pick something strange or off meta, something like an Aatrox, or where you can punish lane and take a lead and do something with it, that might be what they're looking for with Broken Blade, is like put him on something that he can perform on, and if he can leverage a situation where he can get to that performance state, that to me, just like top end, looking at like why putting Aatrox in at the game at that time, it's like Aatrox can do really well into 2 matchups where he is in an advantage. So that shows that they might be willing to play around Broken Blade.
Not coincidentally, and something we saw not taken advantage of well this weekend by 100 Thieves, Aatrox into Sion is supposed to be a very good matchup for Aatrox. And that seems like something we might see on one or both sides of this series, because it's champions that both players have shown. Sion's proved to be really strong, and we've got a known Aatrox player on one side. So I think that's going to be something to watch. Is G2 willing to let Aatrox Sion be a top lane matchup? Are they willing to give Broken Blade that favorable lane and let him have the chance to maybe carry a little bit more than usual.
Well, Grabs doesn't know anything about draft, so whatever the players decide is what goes.
Well, odds are top lane's going to be in round 2 of Big Ban. So I would not be surprised to see Aatrox bans round 2.
I kind of think so.
And then forcing the Scion ban. Because I called out Scion earlier on with this, where like if I was Shulk, I would ban it every game. Because even if you get that favorable matchup with the Aatrox, Scion is just so incredibly durable and does well even when behind in getting more money and then sticking in the game. And then also provides so much better teamfight utility with how team comps are built in this meta than Aatrox does. Where we saw Aatrox typically succeed is when we have these kind of mosh pit fights where everyone goes in and then you can land the Shy style multi-person knockups or like AoE damage, specifically against G2. So I guess maybe they'll ban it from history more than anything else.
That's the thing. Like, what if Schalke locks Aatrox first rotation game 1 for the mental?
So my problem with them locking it game 1 first rotation is that then I have no idea what Wonder will pick into it.
That's part of the fun. He'll play the Quinn.
It's probably Karma, actually. I would expect him to just lock Karma into that and be an absolute nuisance. Both Broken Blade and Wonder have been like 2 of the main Karma abusers top lane in LEC. So it's very upsetting is kind of how I would phrase it, is upsetting. So we'll see. Camille and Jax are supposed to be better on this playoffs patch. So those are other picks that I could see Broken Blade picking up to try and get an advantage, but definitely you would need like more counter pick priority if you wanted to make it happen. Of course, the other flaw with, saving counter pick for Broken Blade or trying to do these like ways to like really invest in top lane is the Abadage Caps matchup in mid is not one you can kind of like handshake with Orianna Syndra. So I'm curious about how like lane prio and picks work there as well with what'll end up happening.
And I think this is where we can look at a superior region like North America, where they do put roaming champions mid, as we saw in playoffs, where there is like split push opportunity. And I think Abadage has a decent chance of picking something like a Twisted Fate, Silas, Rise, and for where Caps is very comfortable in a lane matchup. He has decent roams and decent capitalization in the mid game, but if the plan is put Broken Blade in a decent matchup, put Abadage on something where he can roam and probably work with the jungler, make that happen, and that's where I will fault North America for not capitalizing on these roaming mages, that they can be far superior, especially in a control mage meta. Take that roaming mage, leverage that pick, and put it into your investment, in this case, top lane.
All right, Steven, call the series. Who you got?
G2.
Score?
3-1.
Okay. Eric, call the series.
G2 3-1. Are you going to say the spicy 3-0? Yeah.
G2 3-0. I think they maybe actually try to make a statement this time. We'll see, though.
Okay. Because from player skill, like, no doubt about it.
No doubt about it, but
it's so crazy when, like, in this case, we're saying 3-1, and we're saying 3-1 almost as an even greater sign of strength than we were saying some of the 3-0s for round 1 in NA, where it's like, we just expect them to just not care one of these games and just, like, give it to them, is kind of what we've said.
And it's reputation. It is reputation for G2 to just do this.
Well, and I think G2 here has to just hard flex. There's no excuses coming in. Like, you were world finalists twice. Like, you have to seal the deal this year. No more memes, no more screwing around. Like, you have to finish this. This is your year to do it. Take names, knock on all the doors, take them, go. You have to finish this. Look strong in MSI, look strong in your region, take worlds. Do it now, or change this team up.
But then a challenger approaches as we move down to the other winner's bracket opening round matchup between Mad Lions and Rogue, who, lest we forget, won the last regular season in Summer Split while finishing second this split to G2 after pushing them hard the whole time, but maybe looked a little bit outclassed in the direct matchups. So, Eric, what are your first thoughts about Rogue and Mad Lions?
So, my first thought is that Odo Omne is incredible. That's my first thought. A true carry. However, he seemed almost too happy this split. So, at some point, he's got to go back to his normal state of disappointment and rejection as the league decides to ruin his life.
Steven, what are your opening thoughts on Rogue Mad Lions?
I think we have to prove teams here. So I think Rogue needs to showcase their dominance and not screw around. Just play your game, win.
And that, as we look at the data that we have, which is 2 regular season matchups between these teams, it's 2 Rogue wins. It's 2 Rogue wins where they basically never trailed in gold past the 10-minute mark in either game. Second game the second game in week 7, just, what would this have been, 3 weeks ago, was closer and took out to 36 minutes, but we see Mad got a very early Ocean Soul in this game at 23 minutes, and then subsequently lost 2 Barons and Elder Drake and the game. So in these 2 matchups, big performances from Larson draw my eye. 609 and 316 respectively in the 2 games, and that seems like a matchup that is favorable to Rogue based on the form of these 2 players. Eric, what do you think about the Larson humanoid matchup? Is it as lopsided as these 2 games make it look?
No. The big thing that has been lopsided is the meta. Heavily has favored Larson. We ended up in this Azir meta for most of this split, and Azir and Orianna are his best champions. And we saw that repeatedly in how his games went. Now we're heading into playoffs. Azir's base early game damage has been nerfed, which has led a lot of teams to start prioritizing it less. That doesn't mean Rogue will, but I think this matchup is closer. Humanoid also had a very quiet split, and now we're going into playoffs, and so we'll have to see, because that's the thing with this Mad Lions roster, is that Humanoid was quiet, Karzi was hard inting, but we know that these players are top tier in their roles and can really perform. So now maybe that the chips are down, that there are no more free wins, we'll get to see if Mad Lions actually steps up to the plate here in playoffs and plays to their full potential, because they have a ton of it.
And to speak onto that, I think Humanoid has in the past lent himself to a counter pick or understanding the meta but picking something that has an edge. He's the one to pick the Corki into the Azir. He's the one that tries to win lane and then influence a jungle engage after it happens. If Humanoid wants to get an edge here, he needs to be proactive, and he needs to facilitate what the meta is and pick something that take the assassin into the control mage here, dictate game pace and showcase that you are hungry and want this again, like the Mad Lion.
As we look at champion picks, I again look at ADCs because this tends to be where we get the most interesting things. And Hansama, we know, has some particular pocket picks of his own. Lots of Kaisa for both he and Karzi, but Karzi's got a Trist game, a Seraphine game, a Samira game, and a Sivir game for his unique picks. Hans has 2 games on Caitlyn, which I don't think anybody else is playing, plus Ashe, Zaya, Vayne, and Aphelios. So there's just about everything is on the table between these 2 ADCs. I would not be surprised if these 2 were ones to bring out the Ezreal that we've started to see gain some priority. I know C9, Sven played a couple games of the Ezreal. I know it is what it is. Some people don't like it, Eric being one of them, but there's that. We know that Karzi has already shown the Tristana. Both he and Humanoid, I believe, have at least 1 game on it, so that's a pick to watch for Mad Lions. And beyond that, it's notable for Mad Lions that no one on their team has played a single champion more than 5 games this split. There have been outliers like the Jhin and like the Kaisa that we've seen in the previous series we looked. Their most played is Karzi's Kaisa with 5 games, but they've all got a bunch of champions with either 2 or 3 or 4 games on them. So they've shown a lot of... All 5 players on this team have shown a good bit of champion diversity, which is notable.
I liked you calling out their ADC picks, because one of the big things that both Karzi and Hansama have done is pick brawlers. You mentioned the Vayne game, you mentioned the Ashe, you mentioned Karzi playing Sivir, as well as some other things. Like, these 2 are going to go in, and bot lane is really where the focus of this match is going to be in the early game and in the mid game. Is like a ton of people showing up for these huge brawls in bot lane, and then who can build an advantage off of that.
Steven, do you have any picks you think are important? Another one I didn't call out is Inspired Zalilia, his most played and the most played champion outside of the Kaisa on Rogue with 6 games on the Lilia. Do you think that's going to be an impactful pick, or is it going to stick back in the Udyr and etc. meta?
I think jungle, you have your champion pool that you want to prioritize, but you still have to build the team around those picks. So keeping the focus on bot lane, Sivir, I think, is undervalued and has a lot of opportunity with these 2 marksman players. I also like the idea of like Vayne being a contested, like, build around, get them ahead, play out how that goes. So like with Lilia, Nidalee, Udyr, all of these champions in the jungle, they have to have other components around them, and getting the bot lane ahead to where the jungler shows up. Ideally, in my world, a roaming mid laner also shows up, and these AD carries get to shine on something like a Sivir, Vayne, Caitlyn with lane dominance. That's what I think that's what's going to turn the tides, is where you look at your pick band, draft a team that works synergistically, but you're also electing into a very specific lane that you want to get ahead. Ideally, it's top or bottom. I think getting a mid lane win with priority is kind of a waste of time. Let the mid laners duke that out if that's the path you're opting into. But draft your roaming assassin mid laner into the control mage and dictate whether you're going to influence top or bottom with a priority jungle pick.
So I just went through and counted just to satisfy my curiosity. Between Hansama and Karzi, over what this would be a 36 game sample size, they've combined to showcase 13 different ADCs between the 2 of them. The only ones they share across these 18 games are Senna, Kaisa, and Zaya. Everything else, there's like 5 unique picks on each side, so we could see just about anything, and that's not including the Ezreal that I mentioned earlier, or like if somebody decides to break out the weird AP Twitch business or something like that. Like, Steven?
I do think Kalista has a lot of value too, just given the support pool. performing on Callista, as well as having like an Alistar, Thresh, Tom Kench, like those kind of like, or Rel, Callista Rel, vibes with me.
Set,
like that champion pool in the support position with 280 carries that seem to have a larger pool. Maybe that Callista comes into play, and that's a higher pick than I previously, at the beginning of this conversation, didn't give it the credit it deserves.
Shouts to both Trimby and Elioya, who have played 10 unique champions in this split, which is not an easy thing to do, but Trimby has played 5 games of Rel and then a whole bunch of other stuff. Actually, sorry, 12 unique champions.
Ooh.
So one of the other fascinating role to me for this series, besides what's happening in bot lane, is the jungle matchup. So Inspired is was voted first jungler LEC this split, but like it's just so fascinating to me what these two players are given differently to work with. Here's Inspired, who is coming from like this position in my mind of like high privilege as a jungler. This is everything you want. He has Larson, the stable rock control mage in mid. He's got this like highly aggressive contesting bot lane who's picking things like Caitlyn to win lane. And then he has Odoamne, who has the lowest jungle proximity in the lead, but is still in a positive CSD. What the hell? So it's like he has everything to work with. So no matter what he does, he's going to look like a genius in how he approaches the map. And then on the flip side, you have Elioya, who must just be like sweating the entire time, might need to be checked out for having ulcers after this split, because his mid lane and bot lane have just been hard inting the entire time, and he's supposed to come in here and salvage everything. And so that's what he's been given to work with, which is why he has like the highest kill participation out of any jungler in the league, and absurd jungle proximity. Because when his mid and bot lane are just inting, you have to show up, and he has been. So it's just fascinating to me how this is going to play out in the jungle matchup, where I actually favor Elioya going into this game. I think he actually does more for this team because he has to do more for this team. And when we see them actually show up at these fights, that'll be very telling for like, is Inspired like all he's cracked up to be this split? Or has it just been the benefit of playing with like a highly skilled team that has winning lanes?
Something pressure, something diamonds.
Hey, yeah. Eric, that sounds like you want to make a prediction.
Oh, so I have Mad Lions winning this series 3-2. I think that Elioya and Armut are going to be able to tilt bot lane too much. And since both bot lanes int, to me, I'm giving the edge to the team that I trust to back them up when they go all in. And that's Mad Lions. It's going to be crazy because like I am basing this off of aggression. I'm not basing this off of controlled gameplay. And I just expect them to be able to edge it out, especially as we see these newer picks emerging in the meta and the fall off of Azir. I'm expecting a lot of Everfrost Ari in mid lane from Humanoid this set.
Steven, call what you see.
I'll take the other half with 3-2. Rogue. They'll pull it together. They've been consistent. They can continue to do so, and there's not enough components there on Mad Lions to stem the hemorrhaging of their inting members.
Rogue 3-0. Mid diff, bot diff. It's not going to be close.
Spice. That's what you're here for.
Like, if I have not done a full bracket out for the split, I have Rogue winning the split. I will say
Euphoria,
that right now. That's
Euphoria called this a 9-0 weekend, so
woof.
So we'll see how things are going to go.
Yeah, like I don't think this will be close. I think Rogue is hungry and ready, and I think the theoretical semifinal that we will probably get between them and G2 is going to be a delight to watch. I'm excited for that, to see if Rogue is ready for the big stage. Speaking of the lower bracket, though, where the losers of those two games will end up, respectively, we have our introduction to the lower bracket gauntlet run with Fnatic and SK Gaming, the winner of the 6 seed roulettes, to start things off. Eric, I'm going to start with you. Do you believe in SK Gaming?
No. What I will call out, though, is Steven mentioned the Callista pick as being a valid way to do it, and SK is the team that has been playing Callista and making it work because their carry is their support. And that's what you need to do when your carry is your support. You pick Callista so that Treats can do everything in his like EU to NA to back to EU powers to try and carry this team through a game.
He did play on TSM. Know how to carry.
It is perhaps notable that I have talked about ADC pick priority a lot in these 3 series. Upset, most picked champion, Kaisa 8 times. Feel like I've said that before in each one of these series. Where Jezu, most picked champion this split, Callista. That's different.
When your carry is your support, you do what you gotta do, and that's what SK is doing. They're in some serious trouble though. Like where SK excels is actually kind of the opposite about what we said in a couple of these in terms of like Schalke and Mad Lions as far as like the underdogs in these matchups. SK is actually great in mid and late game team fights. Their problem is everything else. Blue and Genax have terrible CSDs and like are going to have very hard times in lane against Niski and Blippo. So they're going to need to figure out some way to get through early game against Fnatic and then try and bait Hilly. That's like their win condition is you have to find a way to like bait Hilly into inting and then try and get out of early game with Blue because that's got to be one of the most like high pressure matchups is in mid lane.
Yep. And like Niski's been good. Like he's been good. I think that replacing Caps was never going to be an easy thing to do, and people surprisingly, I think, kind of appropriately tempered their expectations for Niski coming in to this position, and I think he had a pretty decent split, all things told. And Fnatic had their rough patch, and obviously, I think I'm not sure if we talked about this on air or not, but they've publicly acknowledged that they were dealing with COVID-19 issues within their team house in the end of the season and during the last split. I believe the team confirmed that Hillsong tested positive for COVID-19 and was playing from home during the last week of the split. So 12 months into this, we have the conversation that traditional sports have had a lot about the impacts of this is I'm not gonna say Fnatic's gonna lose this series because of COVID, but their prep, they've publicly acknowledged, has been severely impacted by this. It's different being able to doing everything compared to what they've been able to do in the team house, and dealing with that disruption, dealing with health issues. It cannot be easy for them. So I think that needs to be noted in any analysis of the series, even if they are to lose this, which I do think they should be favored in this series. They've looked like the better team. SK was on the very edge of not getting into playoffs until Misfits failed at the final hurdle. And at the same time, if they lose, there are outside extenuating circumstances that I don't think should make it that surprising if it goes the other way. So just to put that disclaimer out there, I think that it's one of the things that may have gotten brushed under the rug a little bit with LEC taking this week off to adjust to the patch cycle. But that news came out, I believe, the day after the end of the final games of the split. And one hopes that they are in better health now and will be ready to go and fully prep for this weekend. But it's just something we've got to remember, that their prep has been impacted and probably is a lot different than the rest of the teams have been coming into this.
I also want to say that I think Niski is doing a transition because he's in a different region. But in the games that I've observed, and I don't have the stats to back this up, they have been playing around him better than they had at the beginning of the split when they brought him on. And he is definitely someone to play around, and he shines the brightest when he has opportunities to succeed and transition his leads. So that's a lot harder to do when your bot lane is not playing on point, whatever the circumstances may be. And so if the mindset change has come through to like, hey, Niski is a powerhouse and he can perform, and you give him the right champion and the right opportunity to succeed and play around that, this team looks a lot better. So if they have that now, they can pick up some wins and probably take that a lot further than they have the rest of the split.
Picks to watch. We talked already about the Callista and how that might be an impactful pick. Let us note right now that has a thing that has already been showcased in this series. Niski, known Seraphine player. And we see Silas. A lot of our other mid laners with Azir and Syndra at the top of their list. Niski has the Azir tied at the top of his priority list for the split, but it's tied with the Seraphine. 3 games on Seraphine, I think, is more than just about any other mid laner has shown to you.
If we're talking about ways to make it so that Hilly and Bwipo inting doesn't cost your team fights, Seraphine is one of the best champions for it. So when Hilly goes in or Bwipo goes in, you like drop the ult over the top, you give him a big shield, and then you let Upset deal with things. And that's what they've done, and that's how they've won. One of those games, I believe, was the one where Bwipo played top Riven into Genax and went
11-0-9.
Yeah, and hard destroyed them. So if we're talking about like, you know, the Aatrox into G2 or ways to try and tilt teams out of games, like I'm pretty confident Bwipo could just blind pick Riven in this series and it would do terrible things to mental.
It's the only time he showed it the whole split, and it went 11-0-9. And also, like, you can do some dirty stuff with that in Seraphine, which was the combination that was used in that game.
I think picking Sona 2 is the coward's way out, and Niski needs to be picking something aggressive where he can showcase his talents. Like, the Silas pick would be wild and what I would want to see. Twisted Fate, Ari, like those kind of things where you can, again, capitalize on the top lane and something like a Riven, but subjecting someone as talented as Niski just to a Seraphine duty is kind of meh, in my opinion.
The other mid lane pick that has my attention a little bit is these two are both known Rise players, which is not a pick that everybody's got in the pocket, but they've both shown it 2 different games, and that's an interesting B-side to the big control mage meta that's been what's going on, because Rise is in there, and if you know how to play him, he can do some really disgusting things, and these two both clearly know how to do it. So I think that could be a pick to watch for both sides.
And that's how you beat the control mage meta, is pick something that can beat it early, showcase your skill ceiling, and then not have the mid or late game turn. Like, if you're not getting into late game, or you're not allowing a late game like 40-minute Ori ult or something like that, those control mages don't have that kind of value. So if you're picking an assassin, you're getting ahead, or you're picking a roaming mid laner and you're getting ahead and you're getting the objectives and you're just winning the game with your better skills, do it. So if you're in a matchup where you don't have to take that control mage and you have the better skill ceiling, take that opportunity, take that avenue, and win the game.
Eric, call the series.
Fnatic, I'll say 3-1. Kind of because I do think that Hilly and Bwipo like might not throw in game, but they'll
reputations.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give it to the
Steven,
pedigree.
Call the series.
Yeah, the pedigree speaks for itself. So 3-0 Fnatic. I think they're going to get it together here and just like let's do some brand equity control here and just win some games and take them off SK very handedly.
I'll take the 3-2 this time. I've called the sweeps the other times. I think this might be more interesting than it looks. I hope it is, because this I think is our first series of the weekend, is these two to kick things off on Friday. And I'm hoping that it's a good one. I think that SK could find some tools to make it more interesting, but I am a little bit worried about that top lane, because that 1109 Riven game tends to stick with you a little bit in the direct player matchup, and that's unfortunate.
Show your skill ceiling. Do it, cowards.
Riven's a good champion to do that with, turns out. So if that's how things stack up, then Fnatic would progress to play the lower seeded of the two losing teams from the two upper bracket matchups, which would mean that they would play Schalke.
Yeah.
And so then the winner of Fnatic Schalke would play probably Mad Lions in the next round before they move up. So those are matchups we could see moving forward, is Fnatic having to work their way through each of these teams or get taken out and somebody else has to do it. So that's kind of the look forward at this. We'll obviously touch a little bit on future series next week, even though we're primarily going to be focusing on the LCK and LPL playoff brackets in our conversation next week. We'll still take a look at where things are at, give some predictions out, even if we don't go and give a deep dive like we have this time. So that's the thoughts on the LEC playoff bracket. Those matches start. It is Wednesday night in North America here where we are recording this. Fnatic SK is on Friday starting at noon our time, and then G2 Schalke on Saturday, and Mad Lions Rogue on Sunday. So a good weekend of League of Legends. It's really is just a fantastic weekend of League of Legends, because we have playoffs going in Europe, playoffs going in North America, and the final days of the regular season in both China and Korea. So there's so much good stuff to watch as all of this kind of comes to a head in playoff season. With that said, we're going to move next to take a look at the NA race, which we previewed last week, and maybe give ourselves some props in some ways and maybe not in some other ways. So, who wants to give themselves a pat on the back first? I'm going to let Eric go first because I'm mad at how well he called TSMTL.
Yeah. Tactical tried to Malphite ult a couple of times, but it wasn't enough to throw that series. I was pretty impressed actually with how prepared TSM looked. Like, their drafts were not bad. It was just that they got beat.
They should have won. They should have won game one.
Top gap was pretty large in this series.
That series twists on a knife edge if TSM actually figure out how to close game one. The shot calling right at the end was brutal to see, and I think that really did throw the mental down a little bit, because really, like, if they play some of the fights at the end of that game better, it's 1-0 and you played and executed a great draft and made it happen. But once that goes sideways, it's bad news bears.
Was that the Azir game? Or
yes, it was. Okay, so I want to jump in here and with all my pats on the backs. Picks Azir, loses. Fuck POV. POE. Into the Justin mess up. But Santorin's ability to navigate, so the mid lane play that blew my mind all over the ceiling and the walls was him navigating that dive on mid lane and E charging with the click over the Azir wall. That was the tilter. That set that game on the knife's edge, and where they actually started showing up and winning that game, and that was so awesome to watch, and it made me feel good, and how bold I was with my statements in the prior episode.
Let us also acknowledge, while we're on this, that Team Liquid, the Cowards team, after successfully beating the Azir in game one, then proceeded to ban it for the rest of the series.
Yeah.
So don't let me tell you. Just let's acknowledge this real quick.
It's easy, because if you take away Azir, he just got on Seraphine duty, which is a useless champion, which he showcased prominently in the remaining games. Because he still got spanked by Silas on Jensen Silence still clapped him. So I want to hear about the loss. It doesn't matter.
Jensen Silas, which lost?
But it looked good. It wasn't his fault. I don't want to hear that.
It lost?
It looked hella
You're
good.
trying to
that
talk
was
about
some spicy
not
shit.
looking good because it lost the game, and now you're trying to give props to the Silas that lost the game?
If you're on
Mr.
your main...
Toothpaste, look at you.
If you're on your main champion and you have a lead and it's spoon-fed to you, win the game. You didn't. It's all good. Your champion's gone.
Maybe
you'll lose the series.
Maybe just throwing it out there. Maybe his team shouldn't have tried to fight at Baron while he wasn't there. Or maybe they shouldn't have tried to take Baron while your Azir, who does the most Baron damage, isn't there.
But why wasn't he there? Why wasn't he there?
That wasn't the Azir's fault. Huh.
It really did feel like, not just in that game, but in the rest of the series, that I don't actually accredit this to a pick ban difference at all. I thought TSM was well prepped and had some good ideas, and TL adapted well after TSM showcased that Azir pick. It was really just in game and like team macro and getting outclassed. Where
Santorin looked the best he's looked. Sorry,
he had a great series. Yeah, and he had a great series. Alfari built good leads and showed up well in fights. They just out-rotated on the map. Sword Art had a pretty bad set of games. Like, I think this was just pretty much a team diff, and it showed.
How many million is he making?
Speaking of outclassed, my turn. Yeah, outclassed. That C900 Thief series was even more brutal than I thought it would be, and I called a 3-0.
We both did, yeah. It was pretty brutal, and sure was.
Steven, I think somebody's alarm didn't go off.
No, yeah, it wasn't Tanner time, which is very confusing because looking at Jensen on Twisted Fate, man, that's a good way to win a game. That looked really good and like had very limited answers. If only you had like a player that could play champions like that and had a really good potential for roaming.
So what I will call out is, like, unlike the other series, which I thought both teams had good prep for, this series it looked like 100 Thieves had awful prep. And like they drafted some dog shit comps and got totally punished for it. Like game 1 was so atrocious from just the pick ban side of things. C9 first picks Renekton, so 100 Thieves like picks Nidalee in answer so that they don't give up Renekton Nidalee as a combo. But then they don't pick a top or mid laner with hard CC. So this Nidalee has 0 lanes to gank. It is a worthless pick and proceeds to do nothing in that game. And on top of that, on top of that worthless Nidalee pick, they also like had no CC at all, which going back to week 1 of play-in tournament, Perkz lost a game on Yone, specifically saying that playing Yone into on-click CC is garbage. We get to round 2 of pick ban. There is no hard CC on 100 Thieves. He locks Yone and proceeds to hard carry that game. And it's like they set everything up wrong for how to get no info out of game 1 of that set. They got no information. There's like all they could learn from that set is don't mess up this pick ban that badly again. And that's a terrible spot to go into game 2, where you have no info. They can do whatever the hell they want, and you're just like off on the wrong foot. And then promptly in game 2, they start picking this Udyr pick, but like with no follow-up pick potential. So here's this Udyr who can run in and die repeatedly. And
Which
so Closer has a do nothing for the next 2 games of that series on Udyr. So he's given the most powerful pick in the meta, loses jungle because he has losing lanes, and then just gets like 3 quadrants of the map 2 games in a row. That is atrocious. And like that's all prep. There is like very little player skill or subbing in Demonte like would have done to make this game any better, because they just like lost it so hard from like pick ban even going into these. And like, you have to admit that at some point this has to be like just a lack of confidence with how to approach this set. But like, they looked like trash. Their game plan was shit.
Let's carry it forward. Are they going to be able to recover, or is Dig going to end their season?
I want to speak to that because Eric brought up such a great point with lack of confidence, which is where we are looking at this team. You're not playing to any of the players' strengths. You're not like this. This seems like micromanagement and overcoaching to an extreme, to where you're a detriment to your team's ability to play the game. And like when closer looks bad, and you're showcasing what you want to do with Ryoma, but you're not like changing that up. Like let the players shine and give them opportunities to win games and draft to what they can do. It seems like a mind game that the coach and Pick Ban is doing just to not set these players up to win, which Dig is capable of doing. They want their players to win. They'll let Dardoch, you want to pick Kane? Have fun, man. Like, good on you. You're going to farm some stuff there. Unless 100 Thieves like lets their talent play, they're going to lose.
I feel good about my Dig pick here. Eric, do you feel good about a Dig pick?
I feel good about a Dig pick, and it makes me very sad. One of the other really disappointing things from this set is that Closer did gank for Someday at least once, and then they like hard lost to 2v2 with like no coordination.
This was the Aatrox Cyan that like got ahead, and then it didn't matter.
Yeah, and like so a part of it was like they actually threw money towards Someday in one of these games for the first time, all split, and it looked like they were uncoordinated, and then later on in that game, Someday was trying to set up flanks on these more like win laney picks like Aatrox, where it's like he's meant to be more of a side lane pressure but still have team fight power. And like there was this one fight by Dragon where Someday was on the one side of the Dragon wall, gold was still fairly even. The rest of his team was As4 approaching from the south side of Dragon Pit, and then they got out rotated, and then the 4 die while Someday's still on the other side of this wall. And it's like you got to be more coordinated than that if you want to win games in playoffs. And I don't think that's anything that's fixable within a week. Like, and so that's and being up against Dig instead of C9 won't matter if you don't know how to position for team fights around key objectives.
Other side of the lower bracket, we have EG and TSM. I did not feel great about EG looking into this series. I still kind of don't, because I think TSM's got some stuff they can fix in a week. And I think they might just be better, which makes me sad. But I have not seen EG prove to me that they're going to be able to compete at a high level like this yet. I hope they do. But if I'm just predicting, I don't think EG is going to win this series.
Agreed. One of the things we saw was that TSM has good prep, and I continue to have good prep. So they're not going to pick themselves into an Echo matchup, and as long as they don't do that, it's looking awfully hard for EG.
Steven, agree?
Yeah, normally I'd say like TSM would tilt off the face of the earth, but like they have such a regimented play style that they can adapt in so many more ways than EG can, which is like I think that whole team has become truly coin flip as to where like Pick Ban almost doesn't matter, because even if they're on their like winning roster and they're winning champions, they still have the potential to screw that up, where TSM is going to play to their strengths, and they're going to set a strategy and execute on it, and that's going to win in the best of 5.
The one caveat that I will say, and this is pure spicy narrative, it's playoffs, Nars in meta, EG's got impact.
Pretty sure TSM's banning it every game.
They probably should. They really probably should. Because man's got himself a reputation. So with those, I suspect we will say goodbye to EG and 100 Thieves this weekend. We shall see if we do. But meanwhile, in the upper bracket, Steven, I'm gonna let you go first. Chill for your boys.
Easy clap. Like they've shown that like they're letting Jensen play whatever he wants. Let him play the game and influence the map, whether it's winning his lane hard or leaving his lane and winning. But St. Torren looks spicy. Like, he looks like a completely different player from when he came onto TSM, and then a different player than that in playoffs. It's so wild to see that he is very comfortable in doing whatever. I wasn't, like, excited about his Nidalee play. He looked good on Nidalee. That is something that is not common, and I'm so glad to see it here in playoffs. And they would have to really tilt off the face of the earth and just not play to their skill ceiling if they're going to lose.
It's going to be fun to watch Jensen get bopped by 70 farm in mid lane. I'm going to enjoy that and listen this back.
Yeah, watch it back.
Eric, do you agree or disagree?
I do think a lot of this set, either way, is going to come down to winning lanes. Both junglers have shown that they can carry when given winning lanes for map pressure, so that they can then, starve the enemy jungler off of 3/4 of the map. So I'm going to look for, is Blabber or is Santorin going to get the map presence advantage, which will let them have a map advantage in this set.
And I'm going to look for who's going to win lane harder, Alphari or Perks, because I think that matters as much as anything does. Because to me, the gap between Alphari and Fudge is probably C9's biggest problem in this series. And as we talked about extensively last week, teams have not shown a propensity to focus topside. And I don't really think that changes, which honestly, again, C9's weakest spot is Fudge. We've said this all split. Maybe you should let your Alphari, who had arguably one of the better top lane seasons in the history of the LCS this split, give it to him.
Just let him do him. He's going to clap some Fudge bars and just eat that shit up. And Santorin's allowed to either take some of that and get some good, or take it to Jensen or take it to bot lane, which those are all good investments. And so, like, you don't have to cover for the weakness of top lane, which is going to be the duty of Blabber and Perks.
All right. I've made my position clear, but we're going to have to make the real calls for this one. Steven, call it. Number of games.
3-1. Liquid.
Eric, make the call.
3-1 Cloud9.
3-0 Cloud9.
3-0 Cloud9? Are you kidding?
3-0 Cloud9.
Wow.
Perks look absurd. Perks and Blabber look absurd.
If there is a player I trust in this series, it is Luka Perkovic.
Nah.
It's him. It's that one. That's the one I trust.
It's like, we don't even have... He hasn't needed to fall back on the meme champions that he has, like, bad songs about him on yet. And, like, and, like, even when he was in, his Rise is bad, his Aurelia's worse territory, he was still winning LEC. Like, this is not a... And he has better champions he can be playing right now. Yone is hella busted. So,
This time of year is why you spend the big buckaroos on Perks. Because he wins you championships.
What's his control mage pool? What's his control mage pool?
He doesn't need to play him. That's the thing.
Doesn't need to, or
he has an entire rhyme about his Azir and his Rise, my dude. He knows how to play the champions. He just doesn't want to.
Wait, okay, hold on. Rise is a control mage?
Kind of plays that way, but
kinda? Okay.
Yeah, kinda.
I put roaming in their own category, so maybe that's my own fault.
You can roam on Azir if you really want to.
But that's not a roaming mage. Roaming mage is Twisted Fate and Rise and
Galio.
Well,
and Galio.
Now that we've made all these calls, can we just acknowledge that TF's going to be banned basically 100% of this weekend in every game?
I hope so, because he's really good looking. I like when Twisted Fate is contested.
All split.
Yeah, he's sleeper, man. People don't want to give him the time of day, but damn.
So my only reason I'm gonna hesitate on this one is that we have seen Orianna like hard shit on TF and lane in a couple of these sets. Usually it's when there's bigger skill diffs. So like now when it's like Jensen v Perks, and it's like PoE versus Jizuke, like maybe it gets banned out because like these are players who don't get wrecked like Rihomo would. But like that's one of the things is that TF like should be more punishable in lane than the control mages. That is why it was a control mage meta, is that you could bully these like map presence mid laners and force them to use their abilities to go back to lane rather than going anywhere else. And by exerting map pressure and like forcing them under turret, you back up your jungler invading into their jungle. And then that's how you build advantages. It's all about the jungle right now. And so you want to be able to build there and punish by just hard shoving. So like that's where these the control mages were stronger, is that you could like hard shove the TF under turret and like or to lower health totals. And so then as TF you don't want to like port in and try and like gold card an Udyr, because that ends poorly. And that's kind of where, to me, this got like more interesting, is that like are these mid laners who are going to pick these roaming champions going to actually be able to have prio in lane long enough to be able to impact the map? Because it's been hard. It's been pretty hard. Ryze is strong partially because his wave clear is good enough that you can actually match Orianna or the Azir in this wave presence in ways that TF really can't or shouldn't be able to.
If I'm going to give any credence to Cloud9, which I won't, but Blabber on Lilia, he's probably the only person that has made Lilia look like damn good. And so I'm very curious, because I don't want to see Santorin on Lilia. I really don't. And so how that pick plays into all of this, where synergy with the rest of the team is quite important, that might be something that I haven't considered prior. So I hope that is a considered pick, whether it is just straight up banned or there is an answer. I don't want to see Santorin on Lilia, but I hope Perks and Blabber are baited into some kind of Lilia comp and Liquid has an answer for it.
Couple of general pick things. I have a question about a pick that keeps popping up on and off in places that is a different jungle pick. Steven, is Mundo jungle actually worth playing?
Yes, but he also has to have champions around him because he is an answer. Because a Mundo showing up later in the 2v2 top or later into the 2v2 mid is very spooky. And it's hard to do that. But a Mundo initiating one of those early fights, he can get set very far behind. So it's... yeah, it depends on that top. Like Mundo Gnar is really gross in mid to late game. Like that's yucky. You don't want to be against that. But if you know how to shut it down early, it's kind of a risky pick because Mundo that isn't tanky and isn't like either well farmed or ahead is kind of a nothing to the enemy team. So,
Eric, what do you think about Mundo?
I think he's good with and against Ezreal. So that would be like one of the other things to be on the lookout for. Is because like where Mundo's had problems when like Tinxus played it in LEC is you're a huge damage soak, but your team still needs to live around you in order to win the fight. Because like it doesn't matter if you're like 1v5 on Mundo at the end of the day. So you need to have a team that lives around you as you're just like wading through the front line, soaking all this damage. I also like think that. Sorry, I have a cat who's here.
His presence is known and announced.
I also think that you have to be careful with Trist is really good into Mundo, so I would expect it would only really come out if after Trist has been decided or banned away, because you can just Buster shot the Mundo back out of your team after he ran at you,
yep.
which you can't do with Olaf, for example. The Olaf can just ult and then not be displaced, which means you have to jump away as opposed to just Buster shot. And then with Mundo, that undoes 3 seconds of Mundo in combat, which is a big deal to effectively neutralize somebody's presence.
Steven, what do you think the most important champion of this weekend is going to be, whether in picks or bans, across all the games that we're going to see? What do you think the most decisive champion pick is going to be?
I think Gnar is got to be a big contest, because in the right hands, he's very, very strong, and unless you have very specific answers, and he can participate in the game in so many different ways. So I think Gnar is a consideration, and will probably be one of the higher influences on teams formulating a plan.
Eric, what do you think?
Gnar's a really good answer. If I'm going to say something different, I'll say Tristana, just because teams that can play it and flex it have so much impetus in draft, and flexes are really strong, especially if it's to neutral roles mid and AD.
And Trist is probably what I would have said as well. I've been kind of leading to that point on and off through the podcast. Is it something that's starting to build up to importance? We've talked about how strong it is for a while, and the fact that it's flexed. I think we've even seen it flexed top in a couple different places. I don't think it's been. It definitely didn't happen in LCS playoffs last weekend, but I think we've seen it in the Eastern leagues at least a little bit as a potential 3-way flex, depending on the lane matchup you get in top lane. And it's a really strong pick. It's got a lot of versatility, and it brings some different things to the table. If I were going to say something other than that, since Eric already said it, I would say man, I want to say something other than Seraphine, but I think that's my answer. Teams are continuing to figure out how to build comps around her. She's also a 2-way flex. Since we've seen a couple of the teams, including a couple of teams in these playoffs, play her bot lane. I don't think it's necessarily likely, because there continue to be things that are uncomfortable for her in bot lane, but it's clear that teams are trying to figure out how to use her. Not as much that she's not in the meta, it's just that she plays so differently to Sona mid. If we're gonna make a Sona joke, Sona mid hasn't been a pick in competitive play ever. So it requires different coordination and a different team comp to be built around it. But I think if teams get it figured out right, especially a couple of these teams that have Seraphine players on them, like Fnatic that we talked about, I think that could be really impactful on it, because if you successfully get a comp right that works around it, and teams can't figure out how to respond to it, that's the kind of thing that gets you up in a best of 5 series. I think that's about all the thoughts I have. I thought I had one more question to think of, but let's get it wrapped up. Steven, what have you been playing?
Oh, nothing. I've been looking at merch and thinking that everyone should buy some merch. You got your stimmy checks. You got money in the bank. You want to buy some cool T-shirts at the Funky store, funky.store. You should go there and buy some merch, because you'll look good.
Eric, what have you been playing?
Tristana, or since Tristana's getting banned a lot now, potentially Sivir.
What was my favorite thing I played? It was Bard. Bard was the answer.
Bard is Bard.
Bard, you just build the ADC build.
Chimes.
I went less on hit and more just ADC. It was Kraken Slayer into Blade of the Rune King. but then I went more traditional ADC items after it, and it felt really good. Like getting the rapid fire cannon on there to get the extra range on your Meep slow autos feels really good. And people don't expect people don't expect you to be able to outduel them just autoing, and you do because you hurt, particularly if you get the stun set up. I had a Varus who thought he could out damage me and out trade me in autos, and he couldn't anymore because I was too far ahead of. But yeah, particularly if you're an ARAM player, mostly as I am these days, play 80 Bard. He's a remarkably good duelist, especially after you get Blade of the Ruined King done. And if you get some good corner cutting angles on your tunnels, like tunnel into the base while their second turret is still up, and then go kill their backline behind them, it's really fun. So play Bard. Bard's fun. You don't need to build support either. You can build damage on him. You can build AD on him. You can just do whatever you feel like. You can build full tank on him. Whatever.
Be your best Bard. Be the best Bard you can be.
Whatever flavor, what mythic in the game wouldn't you build on Bard? You could build almost any mythic in the game on Bard. You could build Duskblade Bard. It would work.
I probably wouldn't build Stridebreaker. Like Stridebreaker on Bard or Gore Drinker feel like a bridge too far. But those are the two.
Stridebreaker, you reposition and get those angles. The angles.
But why wouldn't you just build Gale Force, though? Because I would just build Gale Force in that situation.
But you gotta get in. Bard's gotta be up in them guts.
It's hard to get in. Like, it's hard to get in there unless you hit the ult so you can get in. And then, like, if you get in the middle of them and get the Gore Drinker proc, you got the Gore Drinker proc, but you're still better as a duelist instead of a big team fight.
Like, those are the two, though. Because, like, Divine Thunder still seems good. Trend Force seems good. Like,
Night Harvester's great. Luden's
all the
works.
support mythics, all of them.
Yep. Like, you can do, like, you could build Sunfire and just be obnoxious tank Bard. Like, why not?
Yes.
Do Chem Tank and run really fast to get the stuns. Like,
yes.
Like, you could build almost every mythic in the game on Bard and have it be a semi-legitimate purchase, which is why I appreciate him.
Thank you, Bard, for all you provide.
There you have it. I didn't talk about Poppy or Fiora. I talked about something else. 80 Bard. There you go. Anyway, go to the link tree, subscribe, like, comment, review, buy merch. We will be back next week, and we're going to make Steven do almost an entire episode about the LCK and the LPL, and he's going to be ready for it.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to read.
And so are Eric and I, but it'll be an adventure for us. It's going to be fun to see those brackets get set this weekend. There are lots and lots of games to watch. We've talked about the LEC and the LCS games that are this weekend. If you're looking for some late night League of Legends to watch, catch some end of the season games. Highlight matchups include FPX against Billy on Friday early morning. Damwon's last game of the regular season against KT. If you want to see a couple of 25-minute stops of Damwon looking really good, watch that one because they're really good. If you want some delicious bottom table LPL end of season action that will probably have some if I know the LPL, it might have some hilarious bands with two from playoffs and OMG and TT. That might be worth watching because you might let some spice out there. I'd enjoy that if we got some spice going on. Whenever the LCK and LPL teams get to have the games like the dumb everybody's playoff spots are clinched games, there's some fun stuff that happens in there, and I enjoy it every time. So it can be some silly season. The very last matchup of the LPL actually is probably the best one of the whole weekend with Rare Adam against Edward Gaming, which that I believe could decide a whole chunk of playoff seeding right at the very end. So there you have it. That's Sunday early morning. So watch games. Just spend your whole weekend watching games, which is not what I'm going to do, but you could do it. You're listening to this podcast, so you clearly care enough about League of Legends to spend some time watching games this weekend. So go get it. Anyway, yeah, that's Steven. That's Eric. I'm David. This has been Reaction Time. We will be back next week, same time, to talk about LCK and LPL. Woo!
Yay!